top of the bulletin, we've got a packed show for you, ladies and gentlemen. A big success, first off, for the security forces ahead of Home Minister Amit Shah's visit to Jammu and Kashmir. Security forces have given a major blow to the Jaish-e-Mohammed's revival strategy in eastern Jammu with the elimination of 3 Jaish terrorists and a major weapons recovery, including M4 assault rifles and AK-47s. This has been a precision operation across the Doda-Kishtwar-Udhampur belt in eastern Jammu. Intelligence agencies say the M4s are issued only to high-value, mission-critical Jaish operatives, confirming their senior operational status. So senior commanders of the Jaish-e-Mohammed have been neutralized by the security forces in this precision operation. The 3 terrorists are all Pakistani nationals. They hailed from Rawalkot in Pakistan-occupied Kashmir, who have been neutralized in this operation in eastern Jammu by the security forces. Now, they had infiltrated as part of a large Jaish batch of 35 to 40 terrorists back in April 2024. So remember, this entire terror plan was lying in wait for so many months. They were not fresh recruits, and as we were pointing out, they were battle-hardened terrorists, long-surviving operatives, and were responsible for multiple killings as well as attacks in the Kishtwar region of Jammu and Kashmir. The terrorists were operating without any electronic communication as well. They were relying entirely on human couriers, coded movement and terrain familiarity, making detection extremely difficult. But this is a huge victory for the security forces. Intel sources also say the encounter is a game changer for eastern Jammu and Kashmir, where terrorism suddenly came back and a peaceful region was suddenly turning into a hotbed of terror. So that's the big piece of news that's coming in. To decode this further, all these inputs brought to us by our securities editor Manoj Gupta. I'm joined by my colleague Anand Narasimhan on the broadcast. Anand, something that has been a cause for concern for several years now is the revival of terrorism in Jammu and Kashmir, but this precision operation striking at the heart of the Jaish sleeper cells that were operating inside the Jammu region.
Well, good evening to our viewers and good evening, Ayushman. Let's put things in a little bit of a perspective. You said that they came in and infiltrated 35 to 40 terrorists back in April 2024. That was just around the time ahead of the Lok Sabha elections in June 2024. It was also the time when there had been a lot of drone drops which had been noted across Udhampur area, and it was quite surprising for the authorities and the forces as to why so much of drone movement was happening over Udhampur, which was largely a very quiet area. Now, clearly, a huge cache of weapons, etc., have been dropped at that time. And these terrorists over the last 2 years have been lying in wait. They've been waiting. They've been doing small attacks here and there, but they've been infiltrating in this region, clearly focusing on the Hindu population in Jammu. That's one. Secondly, February 12th is the election in Bangladesh. So the Jaish and the Jamaat and the entire radical group in Pakistan, backed by the Pak military, were wanting to do some big activity in Jammu to try and underline the fact that backing the Jamaat in Bangladesh and the support and rile up this entire anti-India, anti-Hindu sentiment and whip up the frenzy ahead of the Bangladesh elections. Thirdly, Union Home Minister Amit Shah was going to be visiting Udhampur, and a big terror attack just ahead of his visit would have embarrassed the Indian government, again playing into the political hand and the whole narrative that the Pakistanis are trying to whip up. So cricket on one hand, weaponizing cricket on one hand, and of course terror on the other. So this is all part of an orchestrated thing. And last week we heard the Jaish cadre, we heard Jaish's top leaders sitting there in Bahawalpur and saying that we are ready to strike. We are ready to strike deep in the heart of India, and we will take revenge for what happened in terms of Operation Sindoor of May last year. So clearly, all of these put together, they were under pressure to try and do some big karnama or some activity, and it's a big victory. That's why it's a big victory, because you've broken the backbone when you take out the commanders, key commanders. Now, are there others also involved, and are there key orchestrators of certain other activities which are other terror acts which are going to be committed? There has to be a certain sense of high alert, even as the snow thaws and it's the onset of spring. Remember, February, March, April is when there is a spurt in terrorist activity, and it was only in April 22nd last year that we saw what happened in Pahalgam. So we have to be very, very careful about at these times as to what could happen in Jammu and Kashmir, and that is the reason why forces have to be ultra alert. Omar Abdullah's criticism as to how this area is active, then we cannot forget that over the last 2-3 years, terrorists have been playing this game. And the thing is that the enemy is willing to play the long game. They are willing to lay in wait, hide in plain sight, and strike when perhaps the guard is down on this end, even marginally. And they are willing to explore other areas beyond the traditional terror belts.
Right. Thank you, Anand, for decoding that for us. Those are inputs brought to us by our investigations editor Manoj Gupta about this crackdown on the Jaish terror network.